What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at The Deer Hunter, directed by Michael Cimino and starring an all-star cast that includes Robert De Niro, John Cazale, John Savage, Meryl Streep, and Christopher Walken. Deer Hunter tells the story of these friends who are Pennsylvania steelworkers who, in their blue-collar lives, they go hunting for deer until three of the six friends get drafted to Vietnam, and their experience in Vietnam changed them for the worse. So, my overall thoughts on The Deer Hunter is this. I think this is a damn good movie. I got two issues with this movie, but overall, this movie is almost great. So, I'm going to illustrate my pros, and then I'm going to talk about my two cons. Pros. The cast in this movie is excellent. Robert De Niro as the character of Mike Worski, he is fantastic. Christopher Walken plays Nicky, the friend, Mike's best friend Nick. He's great in the role as well, and the chemistry between De Niro and Walken are perfect. These two are great with one another, and I buy them as being lifelong friends. The cast, you have John Cazale, and who's also part of their, and John Savage, who are also part of that friendship, along with two other characters, John and Axel. And I think these six friends have a really good camaraderie with one another, and I buy them being very, very close friends. It works. It's perfect. Meryl Streep is in this movie. She plays a character called Linda. I like her in the movie as well. I like how she has two different romances throughout this movie. In the first half of this movie, she has a romance with Walken's character Nicky, and then in the middle part of the movie, after the events of Vietnam, she starts to develop a little bit of a thing with De Niro's character of Mike. So I like how the character of Linda is utilized in different ways, but she's not utilized in a way where she's looked upon as a heifer or as a bitch. You know, the romance with Nikki feels genuine, but the romance with Mike is just a way for them to feel comfortable with one another. Since Mike returned from home from the war, returned from war, but Nikki was left behind in Vietnam. So I like how all that was really well handled. The direction in this movie is fantastic. The cinematography in this movie is great. Michael Cimino and his cinematographer Vilmos Sigmund really captured that grounded, somber, grim tone that is throughout this movie. Now, this movie has moments of levity, but there's always something underlying. There's always something that's just there that just doesn't make it feel very happy and bombastic. There's the underlying somberness that's always playing throughout, and that really shows in the scenes in Vietnam. These scenes in Vietnam in this movie are just great. They're just horrific, particularly the Russian roulette scene, which is probably the most famous scene in this whole movie, is where Walken and De Niro are forced to play Russian roulette with a bunch of Viet Cong, which, of course, they end up, which is just an intense, nail-biting scene. And the climax of this movie is also a Russian roulette between Nicky and Mike. After Nicky stays behind in Vietnam, Nicky pretty much gets seduced by this Frenchman to pretty much go into gambling and pretty much go into gambling with Russian roulette. So Nick's character, Nicky as a character, just gets completely brainwashed and stays behind in Vietnam and just becomes a heroin addict and just detached from everything. That's what Vietnam does to Nick. What Vietnam does to the character of Stevie, played by John Savage. So, the beginning of this movie sees the character of Stevie have a wedding, and it's really well done, very extravagant, looks very, very beautiful. But then once the stuff in Vietnam happens, the John Savage character of Stevie, he loses his arm, he loses his legs, he's pretty much a paraplegic, and he also finds out that the woman he married has a child that is not really his. So his life gets all screwed up when he comes back from Vietnam. The character of Mike, when he returns from Vietnam, he's just socially detached. His experiences really, really changed him to the point where he and his friends are going deer hunting, and as a joke, the John Cazale character of Stan pulls a gun out on one of his friends, but the Mike character pretty much takes that gun from Stan's hand and goes, and it's like, this is what you want to do? This a fucking game to you? And you can see the experiences of Vietnam really changed Mike for the worse, becoming very distant, just very, unable to assimilate back into his life. Whew. And like I said, the climax in this movie is nail biting, it's gripping, and it's just really sad because Mike tries to save Nicky's life, but in the end, Nicky falls to tragedy as he ends up blowing his brains out by losing Russian roulette. And just the end of this movie is also just very somber, very, very sad, with the group singing "God Bless America" while toasting to Nikki. Great ending. So those are all my positives. Now to my negatives. I would have liked to have seen more scenes in Vietnam. I don't think we actually. I think we don't really get a chance to see the war from the perspective enough of the friends. I think when we get to Vietnam, they're already trenched into the war. They've already been through some shit, and they're already doing Russian roulette. I would have liked to have seen maybe a few more things that led up to that, and also the character of Nicky, Walken's character, he pretty much disappears once Mike comes back from Vietnam. We don't see Nicky again till like the end of the movie. I would have liked to have seen scenes of Nicky, gradually being seduced into this underground gambling world of Russian roulette and see his heroin addiction really take form. Instead, by the time we see him at the end, he's already fully engulfed. He virtually has no memory of who Mike is until the end of the movie, where something triggers in his brain when Mike starts to talk about him, how they went deer hunting and it only took one shot. That's when Nicky starts to realize something, and then phew. But again, I'd have liked to see more Vietnam scenes, and I'd like to see more scenes of Nicky's gradual descent. But with all that being said, The Deer Hunter's still a great movie, and I'm going to give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. This is one of the better war movies to come out, and it's a damn good movie at that. 8.5 out of 10 for The Deer Hunter. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.